All right, the bell tolls 1800 hours, so we will get started here. And tonight, our goal is to start partway through chapter 18, pick up where we left off, get through 19, and 20 if we had time. I don't know. I'd like to shoehorn in 2 Peter 2 and whatever. Lots of stuff we could kind of cover. But we'll start where we left off at Genesis 18:16. Before we jump into it, who would like to open us up in a brief word of prayer? Steve, all right, thank you.
Father, we give thanks for this day, the blessings received already, and the blessings we're about to receive. Be with us now, guide and direct us. Help Adam impart to us the knowledge that he has obtained over the years. Open our hearts and minds and spirits to your will, Lord. Forgive us our sins, we pray. Guide and direct us now. We ask these things in Christ's name.
Amen. Thank you. All right, before we jump in, just for fun, Tab and I were talking about the similarities between Erath County and Israel. Because I've mentioned before, driving around Israel, it kind of reminds me of Texas, or at least the Texas Hill Country. Or at least driving around the Texas Hill Country reminds me of Israel. And I'm sure there's a way, I don't know, I forgot how to get the latitude and longitude going on with Google Earth. I'm sure there's a way. But Stephenville, Texas, yeehaw, and Dallas is about the same latitude as Jerusalem. So I've mentioned before that when people ask me, what weather should I prepare for? When I was taking trips from Minnesota, I had to, prepare them and for the heat and all that, and hope they didn't wither away and die on the spot. But the Texans, I'd say, whatever, when we finally do go to Israel as our church trip, hopefully spring of 27, I don't know, stay tuned. But when we do finally get to go, you can prepare for the weather just by knowing whatever the weather is like in Texas at that time of year, it's going to be like that in Israel. So y'all are already acclimated, so you're the perfect group to go to Israel, I'd say. But if you look at good old Texas here, and then we swing around to the other promised land, over here, we get to Israel, and it kind of occurred to me to compare Israel to Texas. Let's do this. Whoop. East Texas, Central Texas, West Texas. That's kind of what we got going on here. We got the forests over here. We got the one lake Israel has, it's over here. And then kind of hill country where you got a little bit of both, and you got rolling hills and similar kind of landscape and trees and stuff. And then you got West Texas over here. So that's our comparison. But tonight we pick it up in Genesis 18. And remember where we left off last week. Kind of summarize the recap for us previously on Genesis. What happened? Who was born? Important person, Ishmael was born. And, Sarah and Hagar had a little conflict there, so she sent Hagar away. God took care of Hagar and promised her that, don't worry, your son, too, would go on to father many nations, and kings will come from him and all that. For the sake of Abraham, by the way. It's because of Abraham, God really will see to it that Ishmael, too, will be blessed in his own way. She returns, and Abraham and Sarah are promised what, of course? You will have your own son that will come from Abraham and Sarah. You, husband and wife, will have your own son. He will inherit the promise, and the Abrahamic covenant shall pass through him. Don't worry, it'll happen. And how did they react to that? They both laughed, didn't they? Yeah, they both kind of laughed about it, and Sarah really was called out for it. The angelic visitors, who we, I think, determined to be Christ and two angels. Why are you laughing about this? I didn't laugh, and she was afraid. No, but you did laugh. So that time next year about that time, they will have their son. Okay, now, the angelic cadre was about to leave, but then we pick up in verse 16, and somebody go ahead and read verses 16 through 21.
Then the man rose up from there and looked down toward Sodom
Yeah, see, you do too now.
Walking with him to send them off. The Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and in him all the nations of the earth will be blessed. For I have chosen him so that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him. And the Lord said, the outcry of Solomon and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly great. And I will go down now and see if they have done entirely according to this outcry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, as the men are going to the men that Christ and the angels are going to leave from visiting Abraham, they look down towards Sodom, and it occurs to the Lord. Now, of course, he always knows what he's going to do. Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? You know, he is the one I've chosen to work my program for all of humanity through. We've talked about it a lot already, and we've mentioned it. We've beat this dead horse a lot. God chose Abraham just because God chose Abraham. And the big plan he has for all of humanity, which does direct and dictate the rest of biblical history and human history, and which we are still looking forward to, is going to be done through Abraham here. And so the Lord says, shall I hide from him what I'm about to do? I have a plan. I'm going to let Abraham in on it. Of course, God has all of his reasons, even for bringing this to Abraham's attention, as we'll see. Seeing as I've chose him, I'm going to use him to bless all families of the earth, that my big plan is going to be done through him. I'm going to let him know what I'm going to do too. Okay? I'm going to go down to Sodom and Gomorrah, check out the outcry that has come to me. Interesting phraseology there. There is a certain outcry that had come to the Lord because of the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, and I have a suspect of who's been outcrying this to God. Okay, and we'll talk about that later. Or we'll connect that dot later, those dots. But the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great. Their sin is very grave. I'll go down and see what they've done altogether, then I'll know. This, too, is interesting. Several times in the scriptures we have like God, checked something out to see if it was the case. Well, he knows it's the case. The Bible is written anthropomorphically, which means it is written in a way that we can understand it. We would say, I'm going to check this out to see if it's really true. God knows it's true. He has a plan of what he's going to do, and he's kind of drawing Abraham into this plan. Okay, so that sets the setting here of what's going to happen in this region here. Remember where Abraham's living? Hebron, Mamre specifically, Hebron area. And the tomb of the patriarchs here is in Hebron, where Abraham, Isaac, and Sarah are buried. And they're looking down, and we've zoomed in here. I'll do it again, and it'll whiplash time. They're here up by Mamre. They're about to leave. And you can survey, I know we're bird's eye a little bit here, but you can easily survey what's going on. This is not all that far. It's like this is the next neighboring region. And so everybody knows kind of what the cities of the plain are all about. It's pretty sinful. I think that's kind of been the way of humanity. This shows my small town preference. The way of humanity always has kind of been, city is where the trouble happens, right? Why are cities generally seen as kind of more wicked places? Well, you have a big congregation of humans. And anywhere you get a lot of humans, you're going to have a lot of sin. It just makes sense because we're fallen. That's why cities generally are places of kind of trouble and violence and all that, because more humans are there and we're wicked and fallen. But just southeast of this region, we go down and we get to the cities of the plains: Sodom, Gomorrah, Zoar. As you can see now, in modern day, they strip mine whatever they can from the water and the minerals that are coming down. They have their ways of harvesting what they need to. But here we have the cities of the plain. Who lives here? Lot does. Okay. Lot lives there, and now God's going to see if the outcry of their sin is great. So the men turned from there and went towards Sodom. So they're going to start heading down that way. Whoop, whoop, doop, right down there. Then Abraham drew near, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. Here we have he's before the Lord, and one of them is the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" God, are you going to, oh man, are you going to kill everybody in this city? Are you going to sweep away all the righteous people that are there along with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Okay, fair question. And really, this does show part of the greatness of Abraham. He's great because he believed God, right? But why is Abraham great? Yes, he believed God. He's great because he was chosen by God. Okay? And if that sounds like, yeah, but then you're putting all the credit on God. You figured it? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because of God's good pleasure. Abraham's great because God chose to use him in such a way. But Abraham does show a concern for others as well. Are you just going to sweep away all those righteous people that are intermixed with the Sodomites? And then he says this. This sounds daring, like maybe Sarah stepped out of the lightning bolt's path when he was saying this, but far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. So they get the same, they're looped up in the same punishment. Far be that from you. And then this famous quote here, shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? Far be it from you, Lord, to sweep away all the righteous people along with the wicked. Far be it from, wow, Abraham, you're great. You're not that great. You're getting too big for your britches. Now, as I say often, we don't have tone of voice. What is Abraham's attitude in confronting God, if you will, entering into conversation with him, appealing to him? What is this? What is Abraham's attitude? Well, he's not struck down on the spot by a lightning bolt. I think oftentimes when we don't have the tone of voice, it's very fair, I think it's fair to surmise, based on the reaction of the other people, what the attitude was. Now, if Abraham comes up to the Lord just shaking his fist like, how dare you, there might have been more choice words God would have for Abraham there. But Abraham does seem to deal gently, or God does seem to deal gently with Abraham in this scenario. So I do think it probably was more from a place of care, concern for others, appealing to God's good character, wondering what he's about to do, and making some true statements. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? Far be it from you to sweep away the righteous from the wicked. I think Abraham's tone probably is more respectful and loving than what it may just seem like based on the words, because God works with him here. Okay? Loving confusion. Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Abraham would have been fine just to let him go, do whatever he's going to do, because it's God, and he's going to do whatever he's going to do. But I do think it comes from a place of love. I think there's a certain object of his love, but it is, I think, love and tenderness from Abraham. I give him the benefit of the doubt here. Yes.
I mean, isn't God in the business of establishing relationship with people? And this shows relationship here, that Abraham felt comfortable to speak to God in this way or to question him.
That's a very good point. Yes, absolutely. I think Abraham does have a solid relationship with the Lord here. He's encountered the Lord several times. And apparently he gets the gumption to talk to the Lord in this way or with these words. Even if his attitude is righteous and good here, that's still pretty daring. So God works with him. And this is really interesting. And the Lord said, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Fine, Abraham, deal. If there's 50 righteous people in that whole city, I'll spare it. I wonder what's going to happen. Is he going to find 50 righteous people? Abraham knows God is not going to find 50 righteous people. Because Abraham answered and said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. He does know his place here. I'm daring to speak to you, and I'm nothing but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking, so 45. Will you destroy the whole city for 45? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Abraham knows there ain't 45 righteous people in Sodom. Again, he spoke to him and said, suppose 40 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. And then he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there. Abraham keeps talking himself down. One time, so John and I have a nice wooden buffet server in our dining room. And we like to remember the story of how we got it. We were in Dublin in that furniture store. I don't know, this guy that he gets furniture from Mexico or something. I don't know if you've ever been there. Furniture store in Dublin. We walk in and we're looking for a buffet server. And we see a couple of them. A smaller one and a larger one. And the larger one looked nicer for us. And there wasn't a price tag on it. There wasn't a price tag on anything in that place. And the guy comes up to us, oh, do you like this stuff? Yeah, we kind of like it. Yeah, we do have a smaller one and a big. Oh, you know what? For you, the price of the bigger one will be the same as us. Both the same price, whatever you want. Oh, okay. And we're just kind of looking at it. And then he says, you know what? Here's the special price. And he gives us the special price. Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. And we're looking at it. You know what? And he kept talking himself down. I'm like, I don't know how long he's going to last in the furniture business, Stephanie. But we didn't even have to say a thing. And I'm like, I'm just not going to say a word. He keeps talking himself down. And we got it for a pretty good deal. And I was happy about that. I didn't have to do any negotiation. I am a horrible. I fall into negotiator mode when I'm in Jamaica and in Israel. You go to the souks in Israel, and you get like wheel and deal, and whatever. It's just kind of fun, I guess. That's not naturally who I am. I'm just like, there's the price tag, I'll pay it, whatever. But in that case in Dublin, I was able to negotiate like a master without having to say a word. It was amazing. So I should go back there again. But so Abraham's at 30. He said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He answered, and God's being very patient here. Well, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. And God knows how many righteous people are in Sodom. And he's being totally honest here. I won't destroy it if I find 20 righteous people there. Then he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again. But this once, my last offer, my last appeal to you, Lord. Suppose 10 are found there. And he answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And then the Lord cuts off the negotiations. The Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
That the Lord only agreed to it because he knew they wouldn't find 40 and 30.
Yes, I do. And he cut off the negotiations. If Abraham got down to 1, God would have had to say, well, okay. No, I'll still destroy it. I need to find at least 10, whatever. God knew his number. And it's possible Abraham was just trying to get down to save Lot. Because that's who he's really concerned about. Lot and his family, I just want to get down to a manageable number just to save them. I want them to, I hope God saves the whole city for the sake of just Lot and his family. And you know what? Even though he refused, of course, the spoils of war from the king of Sodom, this conglomeration of kingdoms down here, Abraham did go up and rescue them. He was allied with them, technically. So, I'm sure maybe he has a soft spot in his heart for the people here, even knowing they're wicked. He certainly has a soft spot for Lot and his family. But there's the deal. If I find 10 righteous people there, I will spare the entire city. You got yourself a deal. Such a small percentage of the population there. Now, this wouldn't have been a bustling megalopolis or anything like that. Nothing like the cities today. I mean, Stephenville has 20,000. School year, it feels like 840,000. But, Sodom wouldn't have had nearly that much, But still, 10 righteous people out of maybe a few thousand, who knows. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
I want to go back to what Jesus says here, because I think this is really important how God works. In 1 Kings 22, this is how Micaiah talks about how God works in this kingdom, or in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Micaiah said, therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing by him on his right and on his left. The Lord said, who will entice Ahab to go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said this, while another said that. Then the Spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will entice him. The Lord said to him, how? And he said, I will go out and be a deceiving spirit in the
Yeah.
wilderness province. Then God said, you are to entice him and also prevail. Go and do so.
Yeah.
And so it just showed how God used, not only how he used humans, but he uses the angels to do
He does.
his will done, but he lets them have a say in it.
He does. So,
And it's kind of interesting how he does that. He makes us feel like, that we are really something.
Yeah,
contributing. And,
right.
Yet he knows everything, so it's really kind of hard.
Yeah, that Micaiah episode is interesting. What kind of spirit is a deceitful spirit? So, remember Job. Okay, the sons of God, in that case angels, are going up and presenting themselves before the Lord, giving account for what they're doing. And who else is doing that? Well, Satan is too. It's a very wrong notion to think that, God and the devil are rivals battling for no. Not even close. All of creation is subservient to him. And there's a fallen angel, a demon, if you will, a deceitful spirit. I'll do it. Hey, I love lying. I've mastered it. I'll do this. Okay, go. Sure. Be my tool to accomplish my purposes. God is the master of all the universe. And nothing can be done without his authority and direction. And so Satan goes up still, I think to this day, he is our accuser. He still stands before God. Now, I know it's commonly said, I think it's incorrectly phrased, but I get what is meant by this. It's commonly said, God can't be in the presence of sin. Well, he can. Jesus was on the earth for 33 years in the presence of sin. I was surrounding him. He's here now, too. He can be in the presence of sin. He will not tolerate it forever. So it's not like the devil can fellowship with God for all time. No, that's not happening. He can physically be in sin's presence. He is all the time, actually. It's just he won't abide by that fellowshipping with him. So Satan goes up. He has to give account before God. Here's what I'm doing. Oh, have you mentioned my servant Job? God's the one that dragged Job into it, by the way. Fascinating. Sure, he only loves you because blah, blah, blah. And then you know the story. But, okay, go. Fine. Go and do this. I give you authority. Just don't touch his life. Don't take his life. Blah, blah, blah. Dictating what's going to happen. Everyone gives account to God. Ultimately, in the great white throne judgment, everyone does. But even to this day, that still is going on. And so here then, God knows what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. And these angels and the Son of God are before Abraham, and he's negotiating with them. But yeah, that's an interesting window into how things work. Yeah. All right, so the challenge is on. Find 10 righteous people in this one town of Sodom. Doesn't look like there's anybody there now. Yeah. There's people living down there. Think there's 10 righteous people down there? I don't know. Could zoom in on Stephenville and say, is there 10 righteous people? In this room there are, but it's tough to find a number of righteous people anywhere, isn't it? Which is sad. That is the way of the fallen world. But Sodom, here we go. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. What does that tell us about Lot? He's a leader, he's a judge. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, my lords, lowercase l, he doesn't know these are angels of God here. He wants to be hospitable to them. And it's evening. He said, my lords, please turn aside to your servant's house, my house, spend the night and wash your feet. You are visitors coming into town. It's nighttime. Please come under my roof. I will set you up for the night. I will take care of you. Then you may rise up early and go your way. Okay, Lot wants to be hospitable, and he also knows what goes on in this town. They said, no, we will spend the night in the town square. Obviously setting Lot up here for what is going to happen. And Lot knows what's going to happen in the town square if these visitors are just opening themselves up to this. But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Okay, so here's a little snippet of Lot's character here. Over against the Sodomites, he is somebody who is concerned about hospitality and protecting these people and serving them. Okay, and he's a judge in this place. He knows the character of the people he's judging all the time. But before they lay down, the men of the city, and news travels fast here, and again, this isn't some widespread, huge metropolis, and, news travels fast. Hey, there's some visitors in town. The men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man. Hey, everybody, we got to come out and check this out. And they called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? And a few hours have probably passed by this point because they've been able to eat. And bring them out to us that we may know them. And you know what that means, that we may have sexual relations with them. We want to have our way with them. And this is the men of the town wanting to have their way with these male visitors. Things in Sodom are just so wicked and horrible. They're at the depths of despair and wickedness. Okay, that's extreme. Everybody come out to have their way with these two visitors? My goodness, just leave them alone even if you notice them. Lot's taking care of them. Like, let two people pass by your town without violating them. This is how bad it is in Sodom, the wicked city of the plain. All right. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. And then we get this. Okay, as we will see, you can take Lot out of Sodom. It's hard to take Sodom out of Lot. He's been here for a while. He's lived with these people. Part of this is his great devotion to hospitality and protecting his guests. But remember in the Judges class, we were in Judges 19, the Levite and his concubine. Levite does something. Levite does even worse here. But this is horribly bad. As a father, I could never imagine ever saying this, even to protect my guests. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you and do to them as you please. Wow. Lot. He's in a tight situation here. He wants to protect his guests. He's offering his daughters to the crowd. His engaged daughters, by the way. I wonder how their fiancés would have felt about that. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. I have to protect them at all costs. So don't violate them. But they said, stand back. And they said, this fellow came to sojourn. Now they're talking about Lot. They're going to get mad at Lot. Stand back. This fellow came to sojourn. He's not one of us. He's a foreigner. And he has become the judge. So who does he think he is this whole time, bossing us around, and now he's trying to stop us from having a good time? How dare he? He's not even one of us. So they're turning on Lot quickly. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. Wow. No good deed goes unpunished. He's just been leading the people, judging their cases at the city gate, being nice to people, apparently. And now they're turning on him, and they're threatening him. Then they pressed hard against the man Lot. So they're about to have their way with him. And drew near to break the door down. But, you get the action scene here. But the men reached out their hands, these angels, and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. This blindness must have been so bad that they're out of their minds. They can't even find the door. They're turning all which way about, probably turning on each other. The angels intervene, save Lot, strike the men with blindness, and they're like, we got to get out of here. Then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of the place. Lot, hopefully you can scrape 10 of them together. For we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters, that he was about to offer up to the crowd, up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting. So how did the sons-in-law, what kind of people are these, does it seem like? They're people of Sodom, aren't they? I mean, they're not going along with how he's warning them. Look, the Lord is about to destroy the city, and it shouldn't be surprising to them. Like, it's about time. But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting. Ah, you can't be serious. No way. What? They're clearly not in tune to spiritual things. Yes.
Would this be then for actually Lot's acceptance that his sons-in-law to be just the same as everybody else?
Yeah, it's hard to escape that too. Of like, Lot, you were about to marry your daughters off to just the same kind of people. What life would they have had? You can take Lot out of Sodom. Can you really take Sodom out of Lot?
Would they have been included in all women in the city?
See, that's a good question. I don't think they were in the crowd. Either they were in the house with him, feasting with him. It says he went out and said to his sons-in-law. Like, did somehow he get out of the house to their house down the street through this crowd and warn them? And since they weren't there, they don't really believe what's going on. Were they in the other room? He went out to the other room. And so they were there and should have known better. There's not enough information for us to know that. Every man to the last one came out into the crowd. Do we take that as hyperbole? It's possible we can. The Bible uses hyperbole a lot. Even Jesus himself would use hyperbole. And there's nothing wrong with that. Hyperbole meaning just using an extreme example to include. It's like John the Baptist ministry. Everyone from Judea went out. Well, not every single individual, we know that. But it's like, it's a way of speaking, exaggerating almost. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that was a common part of speech. It was a common rhetorical device they would use back in the ancient world. So everyone to the last could be just like almost everyone in the city. Anyway, we don't have enough info. The point is, they're not coming along with the program. So how many people are going to flee Sodom? We'll see. It's not 10. But as morning dawned, so this is taking place all night, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Up, take your wife," Lot, wife, "and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." We got 4. Because, your buddy Abraham, you got friends in high places, he was just talking to the Lord, negotiating for you and anyone else, and God promised, we won't sweep away the righteous with the wicked here. So get out of here. But he lingered. Why is it? What's there to think about, Lot? What's there to think about? These guys are telling you the Lord is going to destroy the city. You believe that's going to happen because you warned your sons-in-law. He lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand. They're like, we're going to get you out of here. We have a mission. we came in to rescue you, and we're going to make sure we do it. So they force him out of there. The Lord being merciful to him. And they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought him out, one said, "Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley." In the valley, okay? You go down. You're coming out. The Jordan Rift Valley. Do not stop anywhere. You wonder where he's bringing them. I wonder if the intended direction is maybe to rescue him out and reunite him with Abraham, maybe, but don't stop anywhere in the valley. To me, that's like head west up here, because if you're heading up here into the hills, you're not going to stop in the valley anyway. So I kind of think that maybe they're going to bring Sodom out to safety with Abraham, possibly. But escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. And Lot said to them, "Oh no, my lords, behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life." Yes, true. "But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtake me and I die." It's interesting to me that this is how Lot is thinking about the situation. Hey, escape to the hills, don't stop in the valley, lest you be swept away. I can't go to the hills lest I be swept away. Lot, you're not thinking clearly. They're telling you the plan. Go follow the plan. Just let the plan unfold. Work the plan to work, whatever. But I can't. I can't go to the hills lest I be swept away. Oh, man, Lot, come on. Behold, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. What city is he talking about? It's Zoar. And it'll be called Zoar. Used to be Bela. Zoar because it's little. And so there's a small town over that way. Big enough at the time to have a king. He was one of the four or one of the five that Abraham saved. But small compared to the other cities. Behold, this city is near enough to flee to, and it's a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved. He keeps mentioning it's a little city. Like, why is he saying that? Maybe it's like, this one isn't as bad as Sodom. It's a smaller town. I'll be fine there. You're probably not going to destroy that one because it's much better in comparison. I don't think Lot is totally thinking clearly here. This is the chaotic event. He should have just followed the plan. He was a city boy. He couldn't make it out in the rural country. Yes, if it is westward he's talking about. Now, we don't know specifically which direction he's taking him, but that's in my mind. He's going the opposite way. He's got like a little Jonah syndrome going on. Let me go down this way to another city. Let me go to another town. I can't make it as a rancher in Stephenville. I got to stay. I got to go from Dallas to Fort Worth here. I got to live in the city. I can't do it. He said to him, okay, and this is God being gracious through his messenger. Behold, I grant you this favor also. And I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing till you arrive there. So what does that tell us about their mission? Save Lot. That's what you got to do. I can't do anything until you get out of here. It's like, you're our charge, buddy. VIP. I can do nothing till you arrive there. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar, the little one. So he just leaves to another city. At least that's Lot's plan. Okay. Now, verse 23. Somebody read 23 through 29.
The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, and all the valley, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and towards all the land of the valley. And he looked, behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it was that, when the Lord destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, where he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived.
Yeah, thank you. So sun comes up. A new morning has dawned, and not a beneficial one for Sodom and Gomorrah. It's interesting. Lot picks Zoar to go to, and not Gomorrah, even though it's right on the way. I think he knows. Gomorrah's just as bad. They're in for it too. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Remember I mentioned my archaeologist friend Joel Kramer? He has a video. I should send you all the link or something. He has a video of him going to Sodom and Gomorrah, finding the unspent sulfur balls down in the valley floor. And why were they unburned? Because the water level was higher in this day, and they just plopped into the water, so they fizzled out right away. But all the ones in Sodom, you go here, and he found, and you find twisted skeletons. Literally, you dig anywhere into the ground, you're still finding skeletons. Those bones apparently have been just warped by heat. It's all pockmarked to this day and all that. And it's just, it's a terrifying scene of what happened there. And then he finds these sulfur balls down on the valley floor, and he lights them with the lighter, and it's crazy. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. To this day, you can visit it. But fire from heaven, quite literally, is what happened. Sulfur ball in the form of apparently sulfur balls rained down, these hailstones of fire. And he overthrew those cities, and all the valley, and all the inhabitants of the cities, what grew on the ground, as Abigail read. But Lot's wife here, all right, she looks back and became a pillar of salt. You get the Morton Salt Company and like the girl with the umbrella. Like, umbrella didn't do you much good. Lot's wife, I like to think that's Lot's wife on there. John and I had joked that we would name one of our daughters Lot's wife because you like to, only because the joke, you like to name your kids Bible characters, and some Bible characters never get chosen. What about Lot's wife? What do we name her Lot's wife? We didn't. We named Michaela after Michael, Eliana, My God Answers, and Ava after Eve. But yeah, what does it mean that she looked back? Yeah. Yeah, this is more than just a glance, but wow, look at what God is doing. Or I just so happened to, in the chaos, and I tripped, but then Lot, are you coming? God is not so capricious, like, I trapped you, Lot's wife. That's not what's going on. Her looking back has to be that longing desire of like, should I have left? I liked my life in the city. Longing for it. And that really revealed where her heart is. How many righteous people at max are we down to? Apparently that's the case. She was longing for it. And so she became a pillar of salt. Why? It's not specifically, there's a lot of ideas like why salt represents it. We're not told why salt specifically. This is a very salty area, so it only fits with the region, Why salt? Anybody's idea, but it's just that, kind of wild guesses. But it's what happened to her. She became a pillar of salt. She was not to join her family out of the destruction. So Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He gets up because the sun had risen on the earth, and he's coming outside of his tent, and he's at Mamre, where he talked with the Lord about what was going to happen. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the valley. He's looking down on all of this, all the destruction, and you could hear it clearly. You're only dozens of miles. I think we did the ruler before. It's not long. Let's do it. Mamre to Sodom is 32 miles. No doubt you could hear the destruction. You probably hear the wails of the people. And so he goes out and he looks down over the valley towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. It is burning. Everyone around knows what happened here. So it was that when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered. This is still all about Abraham. He remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. All right? We're not finished with Lot yet. This is the end of his story in the book of Genesis. And this is another, you can take Lot's family out of Sodom. You ain't taking Sodom out of Lot's family. Now Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the hills with his two daughters. So how much time he spends in Zoar, we don't know. But he went up out of Zoar. Was it just a short time and the people there didn't accept him either? Or is he like, I'm done with the cities. I'm going to bring my daughters in with me into a cave. He lived in the hills with his two daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his two daughters. I don't think it was long that he was in Zoar because these girls still aren't married yet. The firstborn said to the younger, we got a problem on our hands, younger. Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth, as is the way of you marry off your daughters to other men. That ain't going to happen. Dad's getting older. It's just we don't see any marriage prospects for us. Our family line is going to be blotted out. We got to do something about this. Come, let us make our father drink wine. And it had to have been a lot. And we will lie with him, no pun intended, by the way, a lot of wine for Lot, that we may preserve offspring from our father. That's their plan. Let's get him drunk, sleep with him, so we can preserve the family line. That's her solution to this. Wow. There had to have been a better way. She knows there are other people in the world because they just spent time at Zoar. It's not, there's one theory that's like they would have thought the whole world was ending. It's like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. We got to carry on humanity. I don't think so. They know Zoar survived. They know other people survived. They're not seeing any marriage prospects for themselves. They are concerned about their father's line, so I guess give that in the honor column there. But this is chaos. The firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she arose. You got to be pretty far gone to not know what's going on there. The next day, the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father." So they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name, now these words might jump out at you, Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day, the day that Moses is writing Genesis here, which is hundreds of years later. The younger also born a son, called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. Moabites, Ammonites. What do you know about them? Ruth was a Moabitess. Even though God said, there won't be a Moabitess living among my people, don't ever let a Moabite person be in the congregation of Israel. Apparently salvation trumped that. As we saw with the harem, salvation trumps that. She placed her faith in the one true God. So the point there was no unbelieving Moabites. And then you got the Ammonites. We have, A&E Kingdoms, Moab might be on this. Kingdom of Moab. They ended up settling, wow, look at that, right around there. There we have Zoar up in the hills. Moabites came from Moab, Lot's older daughter. Ammonites, just a bit more north, came from his younger daughter. And the Ammonites, I think, are the best example we have today of what was common in the ancient world. A people was named after their progenitor or their great ancestor. And so the Ammonites, their capital was Ammon. What's the capital of Jordan? Ammon. Here you go. It's still Ammon, named after Ammon, from the Ammonites, from this guy, Lot's son of his younger daughter. The Ammonites and the Moabites came to be thorns in the side of Israel. Interestingly, when Israel was in the wilderness wanderings and they were coming up on the east side, and we talked about this a lot in the geography class, coming up on the east side of the Dead Sea before they go into Jericho, God tells them, now I have your promised land for you, but as you pass through, there are two lands that you are not to touch. Israelites, apple of my eye, children of the promise. You will have your land. You are not to touch the land of the Moabites or the land of the Ammonites. Why? Because they're your cousins. And I have given that to them. God apportions all the lands how he desires, not just for Israel, everybody. Everybody is where God has them. So don't touch the Moabite land, don't touch the Ammonite land. I gave them these lands. Why? For whose sake is this all about? Abraham's. Now it's for Lot, but because Lot is Abraham's nephew and Abraham loved him. For Abraham's sake, not only am I going to bless Ishmael, I'm also going to, in some way, worldly speaking, bless Moab and Ammon as well. Regardless of how they came about. For Abraham's sake, I'm still going to work through these peoples that are either coming directly from him or sideways. Yes?
I wonder if the daughters felt like they would have no inheritance if they didn't have a family, since we were talking about Abraham saying, oh, let's give my inheritance to my servant.
Yeah, they still, whatever Lot had, even though they're, I'm not saying just daughters, you know what I mean by that. They still then would have inherited whatever he had. But they expressed a concern over their father's line dying out. That actually is an honorable desire. But this is a good example of how you can have good intentions but go about things really the wrong way. a road to a certain somewhere is paved with good intentions, isn't it? So you could, it was a good desire. Let's carry on our father's line. That was huge to them in the ancient world. But they went about it a horrible way. And Moab and Ammon, these, children of incest, they would be thorns in the side of Israel. They would be enemies. But God still works through them in history. I give them these lands. It's theirs for Lot's sake, for Abraham's sake. The more we're in the scriptures, and this will really shine through in the spring, you will really see, and I've already said it a few times, all of biblical history flows from Abraham. Human history flows from Abraham. Our salvation history flows from Abraham. Our future flows from Abraham. Obviously through Christ. Christ is the ultimate. But it all starts with Abraham. God's great plan that he has for all of humanity, he's starting with this guy. And Abraham is great because he's chosen by God to be used in such a way. Now, he's also great in that he does show compassion here. He was concerned about the righteous. He also shows greatness in that he believed God, of course. We can speak well of Abraham just because of Abraham, but we can speak best of Abraham because of how he was chosen to be used by God. All right, I said that we would try to get to 2 Peter because there's more we can say about Lot. So I've said it a few times. You can take Lot out of Sodom. You can't take Sodom out of Lot. Lot really is showing himself to be quite a conflicted character. There's a lot of bad we can say about Lot. Yeah.
One of the things about Sodom and Gomorrah, it says in Isaiah, that the reason they became such an evil people, in Ezekiel 16:49, behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom, and she and her daughters had arrogance, abundant food, and careless ease, but she did not help the poor and needy. So their sin, their main sin was they didn't take care of them.
That is their main sin. And that's what Lot identified, kind of. Let me be hospitable to you. Nobody else is going to be. In fact, they're going to be dangerous. And we often like to think of the problem with Sodom was homosexuality. It was a greater problem than that. Their greatest problem is they were so turned away from God, they did not even help the poor and needy. Now, that also worked out in such a debased way of what they tried to do with these visitors. But it wasn't just that was their problem. They were so wicked as a people, they didn't even help poor and needy. They didn't care about anybody but themselves. And they gave into their base desires. You name a sin, they were guilty of it. Okay, they were so bad as a people. But yeah, that is really interesting, Ezekiel. That's what God points out, is what their main fault was. Not helping the poor and needy. No care for others. Yep. Because that was God's desire through the law of Moses. That shines through very brightly. Widows and orphans. How are you taking care of everyone? How are you taking care of the needy? How are you taking care of the downtrodden? How are you taking care of those who have no one else to take care of? And so when James comes along, he's like, don't show partiality, because y'all want to fawn over the rich people. Do not neglect everybody else. Now, you don't mistreat rich people. Of course, you got to show love to everybody. But God, through the law of Moses, was so concerned about the poor and needy, and yeah, that carries all the way through the New Testament. That's the reason why Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. Very good point, Mike. Lot is a great example of something we've mentioned in this class even a few times. How can a righteous person do such wickedness? Is it possible that a redeemed person would sin? We've had a lot to say about that. You could look at Lot and be like, well, he was just so wicked. It's only because he was in good with Abraham that we even think well of him. Well, let's see what the Apostle Peter says about Lot. 2 Peter 2. For the sake of time, we'll start at verse 4. I was hoping to work through the whole chapter, but 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare, and this hits at a few parts of Genesis for us. So, for if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness, to be kept until the judgment. At least Satan's roaming. At least that deceitful spirit with Micaiah is not like chained up right now, but a lot of them were. When the angels fell, God cast them into hell. Side note, lake of fire is actually designed for Satan and his angels, but the Antichrist and all of the unredeemed will be thrown into that place also. But it's designed for Satan. Interesting. To be kept until the judgment. God will bring all of creation into judgment. If he did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. I love Peter in his letters. He references the events of early Genesis more than anybody else. I love it. If by turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them to extinction, making them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly on a greater scale someday at the judgment. And if he rescued righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, for as that righteous man lived among them day after day, he was tormenting his righteous soul. 3 times the word righteous is being used here. Over their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. Apparently, Lot was torn up over the sin of Sodom. When the Lord tells Abraham, a great distress has come up to me about the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, I think Lot was probably the chief one that was crying out to the Lord about the sin of Sodom. If all that, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials. If he knows how to punish all the wicked, he certainly knows how to rescue the godly, as we saw with Sodom, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment, and especially those who indulge in the lust of defiling passion and despise authority. So God knows how to take care of us, his own, as he took care of Noah, Lot. He cares for us. And I go here to use this as an example of, we saw all of Lot's failures here. Well, more than them, not recorded in the Bible. We saw Lot's great failures here. 3 times the word righteous is used. I thought there was none who was righteous, no, not one. True, none is in themselves. How was Noah considered righteous? How was Abram considered righteous? How was Lot considered righteous? By faith. Lot was a believer. Peter makes this clear. Lot was a believer. We'll meet him in heaven. Believers wrestle with the flesh. At least I do. I will freely admit that to you. But Lot was righteous. He had his failings, his moral failings, his errors in judgment, certainly. But he was loved by God. Yeah, for the sake of Abraham, but Lot himself was a believer that had the righteousness of Christ clothed with the righteousness of Christ, as you and I are if we are in Christ. But that's Sodom and Gomorrah. Any thoughts, questions, considerations? Yes, buddy. So these are aqua mines that they mine all the minerals. So quick review of why the Dead Sea is the way it is. As you can see, it was much larger. I mean, you can just even tell. And it is just draining day after day as we speak. The rains that come down from Mount Hermon and the springs at the base of Tel Dan and all those, they run, and the snows that melt, come down, they fill up the Sea of Galilee, the water comes down the Jordan Rift, and it goes into the Dead Sea. In far antiquity, it used to then flow down to the Gulf of Aqaba, and the city of Eilat is here, where the Eilat stones come from. And this is a big resort place right here. And Solomon built a port city down here to trade with the peoples of Saudi Arabia and Africa. But in far antiquity, the water used to just carry through. At some point in history, it stopped. It could be Sodom and Gomorrah. It was such a disastrous event, it maybe even changed the geography a little bit, that somehow the water was not, I like to think it was then. The water could not flow down anymore. It got trapped, and all of the salt and sediment that came with it stopped in this area. And as the water just evaporates, all the minerals are left behind. And so to this day, they're mining them somehow. And that's what they're doing here. Because you have in the annals of really ancient history, Roman history, Josephus writes about this. Oh, this place is dead and the water's going down. But even back then, they're like, they have these amazing healing balms and ointments that they take from the muds. And yeah, a lot of skincare products. Ahava, my favorite one, comes from Israel. They come from the Dead Sea. So if there's a mineral that comes from the Dead Sea, they will advertise that to death. Like, it's Dead Sea minerals, because they use them for skincare, and it really does have some pretty amazing healing qualities. It's crazy. There's no place like it on earth. But that's the story of that. And so that's why it's dwindling, it's evaporating, the water cannot. And then we read in Isaiah, oh, what happens in the kingdom? What happens in the kingdom? They will toss their nets in the Dead Sea and fish. Because when Jesus comes back, Mount of Olives splits it in two. Great water will gush west to feed the temple precincts there. Great water will flush east from this great spring, from the Mount of Olives, because it will run down the hills into this area and be so much that it overflows the banks of the Dead Sea, and that river flows once again, fresh water. They will fish on the Dead Sea. That's the kingdom. Can't wait for that. Gigi. Yes.
Stephenville is at 32.22 north, and Jerusalem is 31.7.
They got us by 0.5. 0.45. They got us. Or we got them. Oh, I don't know. Two promised lands, same latitude. It's amazing. All right. Father, we love you, and we just thank you so much for the time in your word, and help us to learn from the examples you've given to us, from Lot, from Abraham, from Lot's family, and all that goes on there. We can see how much you care about righteous living. You care about the conduct of your children. Father, may we seek your face always, look more and more like Christ, that we may please you with how we live our lives. But we thank you, beyond that, we are saved by grace through faith, like Abraham and like Lot. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.